this is a show for moral adults. Like, you can be 37 years old and just be a moral child. Attack on Titan changes its scope from one narrative to another like nothing else I've ever seen. It just adds to it, and then also adds to your enjoyment of it retroactively. Like, when things don't make sense, it's always for a reason. If something strikes you wrong, it's because it's supposed to. You just haven't had the info yet.
And I remember just watching that first episode and watching Aaron watch his mother get eaten alive by this disgusting creature, and it like shattered me. Like, it like shook me to my core. Like, it messed me up so much that I remember telling you, I was just like, dude, like, why would I want to watch something like that? Wrong. I thought something was wrong with you. And I am so glad.
Oh, there is. I mean, but that's really not the point of this conversation.
It's the most complex and well written and well structured show or story that I think I've ever really seen. You're just chewing.
Oh, sorry. So we're calling it when I chew into the microphone.
That's so dope. I love that. Wow, why is it so good?
I don't know. Hopefully, we'll discover it in the process. Like, that's kind of the thing. Like,
why is this show so good?
I think the same thing about Game of Thrones. Like, why is your brain like this? Like, why? How is it? Like, why are you like the most talented storyteller in human history? Like, how can you fucking track? Because like Game of Thrones, like the books also had a thing where like it would just like the show was better because it trimmed out things that like weren't needed. Like, they would just like somebody's cousin would walk into a room and he would spend like 4 pages talking about like the shade of their eyes, and then and then they'd leave and you never hear about them again.
Yeah,
like, it was
you so told detailed.
Me this. It's like untenable.
I mean, like, no wonder it takes them 17 fucking years to write a book.
Yeah, and like I've heard like the concerns about him like aging. Like, he's not gonna die, but like,
you don't think so?
Just being able to
I think that's a very real.
But just being able to track that shit mentally, like you're on a deadline. Like, to be able to just keep track of 7,000 people who don't exist. And their relationships to each other.
And their relationships to each other. And their inner monologues based on their previous bias and past experience.
Exactly. Like, an honest assessment of 7,000 people who don't. Dude, yeah, exactly. Like, I mean, there are 7,000 people who aren't you. And also aren't anyone else because they don't exist.
Because if they're not, they have to be realistic. You know what I mean? So if they're not realistic, then they don't exist. But essentially, it's like he's writing them in a way where, like you said, he's spending 7 pages talking about like the color of their hair, for example. So it's like he's fully fleshing out these characters. The way he's writing them makes them so real. It's not like they're developed. So you know what I mean? It's like they start from a point of being extremely believable. So it just takes absolutely forever for this guy to get through anything. And it's like, how do you even mentally, like you were saying, how do you even mentally keep track of that many characters? And it's like, it's pretty insane, honestly. Like, fantasy writers in general, it's not an easy job, clearly.
Yeah, I mean, like, that's the main thing that ties in Attack on Titan to Game of Thrones. That was the first thing that struck out at me, is that everybody has a legitimate point of view. Like, you might disagree with and quibble with a bit of it, but everybody is a fully fleshed out person. Like, that's the first thing that stood out. And also the fact that it's like brutal, and you hope for something to happen and then it doesn't. And you're like, oh, I guess this person will be, oh, fuck, never mind, they're dead. Like that too. Just the fully fleshed out nature of it. And then also just the moral ambiguity and just the brutality. That's the first thing that stood out to me.
It's what's awesome about that. It's a really good point because like part of what made Game of Thrones so interesting right off the bat is it's like the first episode. I'm talking specifically with the show, but like the first episode ends with like making Jaime the first villain by him pushing Bran out the window. You know what I mean? And they
Yeah.
set up the plot with Jaime and Cersei, right? And like that's something that is obviously echoed throughout seasons and seasons to come. Same with Attack on Titan, where it's like they immediately establish the main villain, right? Like right away. It's like the enemy, the Titans, the specifically the Colossal, because he's the one
Yeah.
that initially kicked through the outer gates. And essentially that's exactly like he tells Bertold, like, when you kick through the gate, an enormous like stone fell on my house, and that's exactly what caused my mother to not be able to run away with us, and she died. Right, and that's what makes
Yeah.
Bertold like lose his mind. Oh my gosh! But it's like they show you all that brutality and violence, and frankly, it's just like, don't get me wrong, like that's exactly why, that's the device to raise the stakes of everything is violence and brutality and the emotional weight that comes along with all of that, and that's how you connect with your viewer, etc. So it's like they bring you in with all of that, and then they go into seasons and seasons of like exploring the world and learning more about these characters. Like Aaron is so well developed. All of them are so well developed. Aaron is so well developed. Like Zeke is so well developed, right? So it's interesting that they kind of did something like Game of Thrones, where it's like they bring you in with kind of like, not to take away from it, but like the easy stuff, right? And then you stick around for like, holy crap, these characters are incredibly well thought out. The story and plot is extremely enticing, et cetera, et cetera. You know what I mean?
Yeah, especially like when you say like the first episode, like because the first episode, like you said, is just Jaime Lannister, dun dun dun, and then the Titans, dun dun dun,
It kicks it all off.
and it's a very clear, established narrative pattern. But the thing that I mean, in Game of Thrones does it obviously too, but Attack on Titan changes its scope from one narrative to another, like nothing else I've ever seen. It starts out with Aaron versus the Titans, and then it turns out that there's like a couple of variants, and it turns out that the variants are from some other place. So there's like some opposing team, you don't know who they are, and then you find out that there's a place called Marley, and also like they're not cartoon villains, they actually have a point and like they have a perspective. And then it turns into just like this whole back and forth between like Zeke and Aaron, which is where we're at now when we're recording this. It just adds in layer after layer, and it never falters or has faltered yet. It just adds to it, and then also adds to your enjoyment of it retroactively. Like when things don't make sense, it's always for a reason. If something strikes you wrong, it's because it's supposed to. You just haven't had the info yet. And you just go back and you watch it for the 19th, 17th, 27th, 84th time, and then it makes a whole lot more sense, and it's a more cohesive narrative.
It's funny because when you watch shows that are like well written and whatnot, right? There's typically going to be some things that just because you're a human being and they're a human being who wrote it, there's going to be some things that either like didn't make sense to you right away, and maybe it was because like something could have been written a little bit better, or like this threw you off, or like you missed this one thing, and it's like kind of speaks to like maybe that scene didn't really do its job because if you miss this one line, you're not going to understand this, etc. Whereas with Attack on Titan, like you just said, everything is 100% intentional. Down to, I mean, the level of detail that it's down to. And I remember like it wasn't until I had gotten through, I mean, I binged like 1 through 3, which that's a lot. Like season 1 is like what, 20 something episodes, 28 episodes or something.
Yeah,
Like it's essentially
25 at least, I think. Yeah.
it's essentially 2 seasons. And I you got me into it. I'm so glad you did, because this is one
After
of the
much
greatest.
prodding, after much prodding on
Well,
my end.
the funniest part is I remember you tried to get me into it years ago. So I just looked it up. It the show premiered April 7th, 2013. And I think it was around, maybe not right away, but it was not, it was several years ago when you first tried to get me into it. And I just remember, like, first of all, I've never really been a big anime fan in general, except for like Dragon Ball Z, but like that like almost doesn't even count. Plus because I was like a child. So it's like I could never really get into anime. It just really wasn't like my thing. But you tried to get me into the show. And I remember just watching that first episode and watching Aaron watch his mother get eaten alive by this disgusting creature. And it like shattered me. Like it like shook me to my core. Like it messed me up so much that I remember telling you, I was just like, dude, like that's why would I want to watch something like that?
Like it's not appealing. It hurts my heart when
I
I
like
look
thought
at
something
it.
was wrong. I thought something was wrong with you. And I am so
Oh,
glad
there is. I mean, but that's really not the point of this conversation.
I am so glad that I'm so glad that I came back around to this, because even the level of detail this show is written to is like, even in one, late season one, I think it is, when like they don't reveal that Rhina, Annie, Marco, and Bertold are who they are, right? Until what is it, like late season 2 or early season 3, I think, or something.
Yeah, something in season 2. It was
Something,
short season 2, but yeah.
right? But it's like they show the scene when Armin figures out, or at least begins to suspect, that Annie isn't who she says she is. That happens in
Yeah.
season 1, right? And the level of detail that it's down to is that they don't even tell the viewer anything. But during that scene when they're all like standing at attention, listening to a briefing or something, and I think Marco had just died. It was right after the fall of Trost or whatever. And Armin is asking Annie questions, and as she's talking, his eyes are looking at her ODM gear that's on the table, because they were doing like a gear check or whatever.
Yeah. It's
And
3 seconds of a lingering shot. That's it.
exactly. Like they don't even explain to the viewer that it's like Aaron or what Armin is expecting or anything, but it's like that is set up, dude, I don't know, a couple dozen episodes before the payoff comes, if not more. And it's like this small detail that, you know, it's the most complex and well written and well structured show that, or story that I think I've ever really seen.
Yeah, I mean, communicating the info to the audience at the pace, I honestly don't know how it works and like how they like actually game plan this shit, but like how they track, like when you first figure out that there's a female Titan, and like in the show, when the characters first figure out there's a female Titan, they're like, okay, this one's bigger, this one moves faster, it moves this way, here's the way that our horses go. Like everybody who's thinking is thinking at the maximum capacity that
They're able to.
that like yeah that they are able to, and like that a viewer, like even like, because you just put yourself in that scenario, like, okay, if I was super really smart and competent, how would I think in this scenario? And
Right.
that's how they would think. And you're also being generous to yourself. Like you also wouldn't be that smart or competent in that scenario, but like you just tell yourself that you would be. But like but yeah, everything tracks everybody's because like you mentioned Marco, and like the scene where Marco gets killed, like like that whole
Brutal.
thing, like, so not only is it expanding the scope, but it deepens the complexity. So you find out that not only is this place called Marley and there's this whole other team, but like they have a point of view, and they're like also tortured individuals, and they aren't bad guys. Like there's no good guys and bad guys. It's just there's a collection of human beings that are being put in really torturous situations that incidentally, by chance, you didn't get to see their point of view first. Like if you got to see their point of view first and then got put on Aaron's, the entire scope of the show could be switched around of who's the protagonist, who's the antagonist. Like they're on equal playing field.
That is such a good way of putting it, and that's 100% correct, because that's exactly what they do at the beginning of season 4 when you follow Gubby.
Well, yeah.
When you follow Gubby, and,
Yeah.
and they make you sympathize for her and her little group of friends, right? And you know, they're the little warrior program, right? And like they give you no context. And I thought what was so great structurally about how they just kind of like go from, because basically, if you think about it, until they go in that basement and learn that the world is much larger than they thought it was originally. It's essentially like season 3 ends with kind of like season 3 is almost the end of like the first part of Attack on Titan. You know what I mean? Because like you're only able to
Yep.
like you were saying, you're only able to conceptualize what's going on and what is capable, like what has the potential to happen. It's limited to only what the characters on the island of Paradise have experienced. So that's why like the basement thing with him looking at that photograph. And I remember when I first saw that scene, I remember like calling you immediately and talking about it. And I was just like, it didn't even click with me at first. Like when he pulled out the photograph and they're looking at it and they're just like, wow, look at that. And they're like, hang on, like, why does it look so detailed? And they're like, yeah, that doesn't look like a drawing. And that's when I was just like, oh yeah, that's right. They don't have technology for that. And I was like, wait a minute, how is that technology there? So it's like you're literally discovering this just as they are, exactly how they would, given the context of the
Exactly in
situation.
line with everything. Yep.
So then that's where like the show kind of ends, and then like the Attack on Titan Part 2 starts. And what do?
Yeah.
They completely flip it, just like you were saying, and now we're seeing it from the perspective of Marley, and Aaron is the bad guy, and it works. Like it's a perfect little flip. And that's exactly it goes to show you like how well the world is constructed and how well the plot fits within that and how well the characters fit within the plot.
Yeah, exactly. It's exactly from their point of view. They're just happy children living their life. I mean, they're also like killer soldiers, but also they're both.
Yeah,
They're killer
right.
soldiers and happy
They're
children.
radicalized.
Happy children and killer soldiers. Yeah. So and then Aaron just fucks their day up. And innocent people get killed. He just blows up their entire thing during the speech, and innocent people get killed. And then Gabby is just like sitting there, like I forget who the person. It starts with a Z, but like her friend, and there's just like a piece of wood like crushing her head, just like, why did this happen? It's just because Aaron did this, because he also had his reasons. He's also not a cartoon villain. You're just parties in conflict with one another. And there is no such thing as a good guy and a bad guy. It's just everybody forms their own narratives of what their perspective is. But everybody can legitimize violence against anybody else. Anybody can construct a story. Everybody's been wrong. Like nobody is just like, oh, I'm just gonna commit violence for no reason. Everybody's been wrong. So the fact that they add in that moral complexity and add in this new dynamic layer of the show, and and also quick note on Game of Thrones, which obviously, and this is not a new take, but is known for going a bit downhill in its later years. Attack on Titan just keeps getting better and better and better. Thus far, hopefully they stick the landing. But yeah, it just keeps on raising the stakes, and it's just fucking. And the bottom line is that it's just human tragedy. There's no story that you're gonna get where the good guys win and the good guys lose, because those are stories for children, and you're not a child, so that's not where you're gonna get.
Yeah, it's like it's a maturely constructed plot. It's a maturely constructed. Well, what's really funny about it is because like when you think about it, season 1 is like 100% from Aaron's perspective, right? And you see him have moment after moment of like temper tantrum, right? Like that's kind of like that's at least like the motif or whatever that I kept getting out of season 1 that like ultimately leads up to, them revealing that Aaron is the Attack Titan. And I think Mikasa calls it before they know what the hell, before they even know that's Aaron, they're just like, it's like, she's like that. Oh, that Titan's like the combination of like all of humanity's rage. You know what I mean? Like that's exactly what like the first
Yeah.
half of season 1 is pretty much setting up. It starts off with Aaron watching his mother get eaten alive and him basically developing this like hellful hatred of Titans, with the Colossal essentially being the big bad, you know, like that's Aaron's Antichrist is the Colossal, right? And
Yeah.
fast forward to season 4, and it's like Aaron is like you were just saying, like Gabby, however you say her name, watches her friend get crushed by a rock, then her other friend gets trampled to death in front of her, right? Eren comes out of the ground, eats Tiber, and just starts slaughtering everybody. And it's like that was essentially Gabby's like Shiganshina moment. The same moment. It's completely mirrored to Eren's moment with the Colossal. It's
Yeah.
literally like almost even shot for, you know what I mean? Like it is so perfectly relative. And just like you were saying about the morality, it's like it's all morality is relative. And it's so accurate to how how geopolitical things function, like why there is, you know, it's so simple to think about how like it's just a matter of perspective, essentially, right? It's just like
Yeah.
because like you were saying, like everyone can justify the violence, right? It's like it's that cycle of like everything that happened with the Great Titan War, but then we see everything kick off with Shiganshina and Eren seeing the Colossal and all the horrible shit that he went through, which basically just ends up with him retaliating against his enemy Marley. But then there's kids in Marley like Gabby, who just so happens to be, you know, a trained soldier, and she sees what Eren does, and Eren becomes her arch nemesis, and it's just like the endless cycle of violence, and it's all just a matter of perspective, right? And that's why, like, when you see things start to unwind in Gabby's mind throughout season 4, when she sees that, like, these people of Paradise are not devils, right? Or even a better example of that is like when Rhina is back home trying to tell his family and everything how awful the people are. And he just like
Yeah.
starts describing like normal everyday things. Like he talks about Sarah, Sasha, talks about Sasha, potato girl, and how like she
Yeah.
was eating the potato like while they were standing in line. And he's just
Who could
like,
forget?
he's like, yeah. He's like, yeah, it was he describes it like it should just be like this silly little story, and that's essentially what it was. But then he just like he has to frame it within the hatred of Eldians. And he's just
Yeah.
like, yeah, it was
They don't
awful.
even
Like,
honor potatoes. Yeah.
yeah, right. And everyone's just kind of sitting there staring at him like, what? Right. So like it's cool watching Gabby's perspective change as, you know, she sees that like these people are just people.
Yeah, and what's interesting, and I'm just kind of thinking of it now, like when that line that you said, like when Mikasa she first sees Eren,
Mi-
or like even before that she knows that it's
Mikasa, Sukasa.
Mikasa, Mikasa Sukasa, excuse me, pardon me. Um, so like when she first even sees the Titan, like she doesn't even know that it's Eren yet, and she's like, it seems like he embodied all of humanity's rage. What's interesting is that, I mean, we're put into the protagonist's shoes for a reason. We're meant to empathize with them. So like, so we're just like, yeah, yeah, I'm feeling that rage, but there's no Titans against us. Like there is no Marley. Like, but instinctively we're just like, yeah, dude, fuck this shit. I don't like things. Like we haven't really exactly put our finger on exactly what it is we don't like. But you know how you don't like things? Yeah, I know how you don't like things. Well, then what if I was 20 meters tall and I could just fucking clock a fucking tower off of its fucking head and just so it's interesting that that sentiment was made by a Japanese writer, and that's the way that he was feeling, and then it's connecting to American audiences and like Western audiences of anywhere, all shapes and sizes, everything. Um, and yeah, I just thought that was an interesting thing that like he placed that bet, just like, hey, you know how you don't like things? Yeah, well, everybody will relate to it. I thought that was interesting.
Yeah, it's yeah, exactly. It's it's so well written. Um Talk to me about you mentioned like the whole because one thing I really like about stories in general, or one thing I found like a common thread, for example, like with Lord of the Rings and stuff, is like there's typically well, like what inspired the author or whatever, or what these things are like loosely based on or whatever. The sources and inspiration, etc., is always really interesting. So you were telling me about how like you know like you were saying like Marley represents what was it like the mainland like China back in like feudal whatever and
I
like
would I would assume China, yeah.
yeah. talk to me about that. Like, what was essentially like the geopolitical setup, essentially, that they're sort of that you are proposing. They're essentially basing the geopolitical situation within the story on.
Yeah, so I think, I mean, I'm building on just kind of like the assumption that it's an island and everything, but there's enough clues in the story that line up with Japan's history. I mean, Japan obviously being an island, but then there's been a back and forth war between Marley and Paradise, between who's been on top in one year and who's been on top in another. Right now, Marley seems to be the dominant military power, which is obviously China's role now. But then also Paradise feeling so guilty for its past sins, which is most obviously Japanese, because it's, hey, you know what? It's, we did our thing. It wasn't a good look. We know that, and it's really China's time to shine now, because we've committed so many sins in our past. But also, you should at least get the feeling watching this that doesn't feel quite right. And I think the thing that kind of put in a pin into it, the most for me was the king's ideology. The ideology that renounces war, like that's just straight 1945. You lost. You got 2 A bombs dropped on you. Like U.S. liberalism. Here's a new constitution. Here's how you were like a few weeks ago. Here's the same thing, except there's you minus 2 of your cities. Like this is just this is how it is now. And we're gonna make it so that you can't. I don't know the details of the thing, but like I know. I mean, the Japan military is still like they called like the Japanese self-defense forces, and I know that they're like at least pretty capable, like operating within the bounds. But like they are literally legally forbidden from engaging in like the standard nations like foreign policy. Like they can't engage in any like offensive action abroad. Like not that would be a good thing or a good idea, but that's besides the point. Like they literally can't do it because of what they did prior to 1945. And in 1945, that ended. So that's kind of that whole like theme of the purple eyes and everything.
Wow.
And the anguish that's depicted of just like, hey, dude, we don't deserve this. This is fucking wrong. We weren't born then. It's not us. What the fuck, dude? I at least, and again, I'm reading into it. This hasn't been anything that's been spelled out for me, but that's
It's
kind
so
of my
good though.
suspicion. Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
I couldn't agree more. It parallels a lot to today too. Like Bill Maher just or when Bill Maher had Malcolm Nance, I think, and Ben Shapiro on his show, right? And Bill Maher, who is very much a leftist, right? But he's at least whatever. He's not the worst, however you want to put it. My computer almost is about to die.
Yeah, he's a very smart, precocious 13-year-old. He hasn't really quite advanced. He's a sharp kid. He really hasn't quite become an adult yet, but he has a good heart. But for some reason, he's been trapped. Like, I mean, I used to be the same way, like just be like a smart 13-year-old, just like, dude, the Bible doesn't make sense. It's like, yeah, dude, you're not the first person who ever thought of that.
Yeah.
But yeah. Sorry for interrupting.
No, you're good. No, because I mean, you're helping me develop my point. Like he looks at Malcolm Nance or whatever. They're debating CRT, critical race theory, and Bill, like the one line that really stuck with me is Bill looks at Malcolm Nance and he's just like, Malcolm Nance mentioned something about like how his father fought in the Civil War and whatever, blah blah blah. And he's a hero, and Bill's just like, your grandfather's a hero, but he's like, but I didn't do anything to your grandfather. Like I shouldn't be taking the blame for like the past sins of the people who share a fucking skin color with me. You know what I mean? And I love seeing how like the parallels with the Holocaust and everything, with the Eldians and Marley wearing the bands, right? And then everything that happens with the wine incident with Zeke's spinal fluid getting into the wine and all that, and they ironically or whatever and start wearing their own bands on the island of Paradise, and just seeing all these like parallels to the real world and like these psychological conflicts, right? And like these gray areas of morality and how everything is this weird balance of power and perspective and all of that. And then like you were saying, like everything with the geopolitical stuff, like I find that absolutely fascinating. And I think that like it it's stories like that. Like this is I think why I'm so like into stories like this. And this is like why I wanted to start this channel and do all of this stuff, is because like I just kind of realized I was like, you know, I think these are beyond a hobby for me. Like I think like the art of storytelling and what you can get out of that and ideas that you can get people to think about, not necessarily preach. You know what I mean? Like I don't think like I feel like I'm being preached at through Attack on Titan. It's just like something
Not at
that
all.
it's like something that just kind of gets you thinking, right? And showing you different perspectives, and it kind of like helps you develop a creative problem solving process or your ability to
I feel like I'm
conceptualize
sorry not to
different.
interrupt. I'm sorry not to interrupt, but
No,
I feel
no,
like
go
I'm
for it.
being preached at when I read articles about Attack on Titan telling me about what Attack on Titan is trying to tell me. Then I'm feeling preached at. I was kind of having like a nice interaction with the medium until this fucking BuzzFeed reporter got in between us.
Is there an article you're referring to?
I mean,
It's like
there's
is
been
woke Hollywood shitting on Attack on Titan, saying it's like dangerous?
I mean, yeah, I mean, proto-fascist, fascist, any stage of
Yes.
the fascist, from larva to mid-larva to full
Yeah.
butterfly.
Fascist
I mean,
ending.
there's from like, because they do this thing where, like, any depiction of something is an endorsement of it. Game of Thrones did the same thing where, like, where Ramsay raped Sansa,
Yeah.
and they're just like, this is a problem. I'm just like, I don't think it is, because I'm pretty sure everybody's on the same page of who's the antagonist and who's the protagonist of this particular scene. And I'm
Right.
pretty sure everybody knows what is supposed to happen and what isn't. So they just do the same thing and just apply it to a cartoon, just become twice as dumb and just say, hey, because they showed like whatever yellow bands on their arms, like this is anti-Semitic, and it's just like, no, it's a deliberate reference. Like, no, we got it. I don't need you from coming on high from saying, hey, this is no, no, I will tell you how this is. It is a reference to Jews in Germany due to being a disprivileged minority within a hostile population. There you go. You're welcome. I will take 25 cents for any retweet of an article that you write. Gets written. There we go.
I didn't know about this controversy at all. All I did was just
That's
type
pathetic.
I googled Attack on Titan fascist, and like the first thing that comes up is article from
Exactly.
an article from from Polygon, the fascist subtext of Attack on Titan can't go overlooked. Like
It
what?
can though. Like
What are
I'll
you
dispute that
talking
point.
about, Tom
You could
Spielman?
overlook it. You could
What?
definitely overlook it.
I mean, let me make an image of non-existent. I mean, that is just nuts. Ooh,
I
let's
mean, I'll dispute
nice.
that central point. It can't go overlooked. It can't. It must be delved into. I disagree respectfully, of course.
I think Jita Jackson from
Wait,
Vice
well, everyone
needs to
loves
shut
Attack
the
on
fuck up.
Titan. Yeah, no, I mean these aren't serious people. They're not good. They don't impress me. They're not good.
Jeez, that's insane. You want to talk about the latest episode when I get into some more specifics?
Sure, fucking whatever the name of it was, I'm down to talk about it. I forget.
Memories
Not
of the Future.
Yeah, which I mean, with a title like that, I mean, it delivers. It's just like, oh, Memories of the Future. This better fucking ring my old noggin.
So I remember the scene when the owl saves Grisha, right? And he's the one of the last
Yeah,
things he says, right? Remember we talked about that when that first aired, and we were like, "What the fuck does that mean?"
Yeah, it was fucking. It was
He
intense
tells
as
him to
shit. Yeah.
save Armin and Mikasa, and he's like, "Who's Armin and Mikasa?" And he goes, "I don't know. They're not from my memories." And
Yeah,
that
and
was
he
just like,
pieces out because that's
"Excuse
as
me."
much as you got to know. Yeah.
That was it. That's all. That's all they tell you. Well, here it is. Let's talk about the title. I mean, shit. The Attack Titan has the special power about the ability to reach into its future inheritors' memories. What?
Yeah, there's a lot to unpack here.
Right. That's just right in the title.
All right. So shit, I kind of set up for myself like I was about to like do like a whole cohesive breakdown. I'm not really prepared to do that at all. I mean, okay, so Zeke and Aaron are taking a trip down his father's memories because Zeke, even though he's seemingly in a position to take take the power and do what he wants with everything and and take care of the aliens, uh, Aaron has something to say, and he wants to educate him on the subject matter about their relationship with their father. And even the subplot of Zach learning about how his father is even a more morally complex figure than he was led to believe in his mind. Because you get to see Zeke's picture of his father, and it's this whole because you think that it's like Grisha. It's just like, hey, he's a doctor, he's a nice guy, but not from Zeke's point of view. He's just like, no, he's a ruthless restorationist that'll crush you like just to get to his goals. And then it finally builds to the point where Grisha is about to destroy the royal family, and he finally is just like, I can't do this.
I
And
love this.
then, of course, the biggest twist of all, Aaron fucking makes him, which when memories of future past or that's X-Men, whatever the title of this thing is,
Memories of the future.
memories of the future. So theoretically, how many past Attack Titans has Aaron influenced? Has it really been Aaron this entire time who's just been projecting his will through the past? And the reason why every Attack Titan is always moving forward in defiance of everything that's told to them is because that's what Aaron's personality is like. It's 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 major shit, dude. It's huge.
Yeah, you just kind of blew that one wide open. Holy shit, I didn't even think about that. I didn't even think about that as a possibility.
I mean, I mean, at least theoretically, if Aaron's propelling his memories down the chain, I'm trying to think of the time word for linearly. I can't do it right now. Chronologically.
There you go.
Thanks. Then at least, I mean, theoretically, that's what his position would be, and he would kind of, if he's the final Attack Titan, he would be the ultimate determinant of its will.
Well, he's probably not. He probably, as far as we know, I guess I should say, he's the first one to ever make it to the coordinate. Him and Zeke, right? Well, I guess Ymir was there, which that's strange, but
Yeah, and she's just been shuffling buckets of sand for 3,000 years and hasn't really done much. I don't know.
well, oh, I meant Ymir. His story is Ymir.
Oh yeah, yeah,
That Ymir.
yeah. The coordinates is a very interesting concept. Not really sure if I can really elaborate on it now because it's just this is a very intriguing thing when one people can all reach one place.
Yeah, they
But
can
yeah, the
share
next episode,
experiences.
yeah, the next episode seems promising. 2,000 years from now, to you from now. I don't know.
Yeah, the first, yeah. That's I'm really glad I picked up on that. Yeah, the very first episode is what, for you?
To you, 2,000 years from now, and then it's wait.
To you in
No, it's
2000 years.
okay.
Right.
And
And
then
then
what
the
is this
next
from?
I texted it to you.
From you, from me. Wait, no, it doesn't say from me.
From you to me to the laundromat.
And dude, it can go alternate ways. Like you could be like, I'm coming from you 2,000 years, or you're your 2,000 years from me. Like it's incredibly ambiguous, and I don't really appreciate the grammar of the entire situation.
The next one is from you 2,000 years ago.
Yeah, so that could be like from you, I'm coming from 2,000 years ago, or from you and your 2,000 years, which is probably not what it is. I'm just saying it's theoretically ambiguous, and I don't appreciate it. My head has been bent in enough pretzels.
Yeah, they do kind of have. Yeah, it's kind of an inception.
Like, is it not complex enough? Like, I mean, I'm barely keeping pace.
I want to talk about my favorite character in the show real quick. There he is.
What do you mean?
Remember how one we decided this one is the worst in the entire show.
We're gonna dissect his motivations.
This is the one that ate the second in command. Remember?
Oh no, Zechariah.
Yeah, that was him.
Zechariah. We'll never see his like again.
Oh man, that all started with the horse. Zeke reaches down because like all the Titans typically ignore regular wildlife and stuff, so like they usually ignore horses and whatnot, and Zeke reaches down and grabs the horse and throws it at him.
Fine motor skills.
When he
just started filing his nails.
I remember when I first saw that, when they first introduced the Beast Titan, and like I was trying to just conceptualize like what the hell was going on or whatever. You were like asking me about like how everything's going, and I was just like, well, I guess at this point I just have to like throw all my expectations out the window or whatever. And you were like, why? And I think my answer was like, well, the second that giant monkey started intelligently articulating his words, I realized that I have no fucking clue what's going on in the show, and I thought I did.
Oh my god, you're right. Yeah, I forgot I would check in on you. Like I would check in on you like you were in the hospital. Like
you text me, be like, "Where are you at? Where are you at?
Are you good? Yeah, are you good? Are you good? Do you need help? Do you need one? You want an OJ? When you need anything? Like, and it's just like yeah, no, you're right. It's like, well, what I thought was incorrect, and now this is a whole nother thing. Which that transition is exactly that.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, that's I love how like the first 3 seasons are really just a matter of like remember Abnormals? Remember how that was like the biggest, scariest thing?
Yeah, they just behaved abnormally.
And that was what was scary about them, was that they were unpredictable.
Yeah.
Like if at least the Pure Titans that they were used to, it was just like, well, we can do things like fucking wave our arms around and they'll come over to this location. And obviously like they use that, to do all different kinds of fucking plans or whatever that Armin cooks up. Right. And then it's just like, then you just have that one that like is just like completely ignoring everything, like running around like.
Dude, when you do that, I have it so pictured in my head. Like, yeah, it's much scarier than he's letting on. It's terrifying. Imagine that.
No, I'm sure they know, dude. That thing haunted my dreams.
Why don't you move your arms? You need to move your arms.
Oh my god, I literally just typed in abnormal, and the next 2 words in Google that popped up were Titan running.
I mean, yeah. Think there's people jerking off to that?
Oh no. What?
I don't know. I don't think most of them are, but
I don't know. There's some weird shit. These ones were weird too. Yeah, there's a bunch of them.
I mean, they're adequately named. I don't like it. It's not normal.
This one sucked. That one sucked too. Oh god. Oh, fucking. Oh man. Yeah, it's really funny seeing how like they just get more and more proficient at dealing with their world and their environment. You know what I mean? Because it's like they start off basically completely freaking ignorant at the very beginning of the series. You know what I mean? The humanity on Paradise, I mean. They start off basically completely freaking ignorant, right? And then it's just like in a matter of like what, 3.5 or 4 years or whatever from the fall of Trost or whatever, they pretty much cleared out the entire island. And I think they're saying that to Brienne of Tarth. What's her name?
Brienne of Tarth. I don't know. You threw me off so much I couldn't even make an accurate guess.
Who's the Brienne of Tarth in Attack on Titan? You know who I'm talking about.
Fucking Annie.
Blonde chick. No, the blonde chick. The blonde chick.
She is blonde.
The blonde chick from Marley.
She is fucking.
No, I mean
is she from the military corps?
Yeah.
Or is she? Wait, hold on.
You know who I'm talking about? Who's? Oh God, what's your? Oh, fuck. Anyway, do you know the character?
Just say it's Annie and just be right, because that's what it is. She's a blonde girl from Marley.
No, that's not. That's not who I'm. That's not who I'm talking about. It's just not. That was a really good point you made. That like Grisha was like too morally founded.
He's a good dude.
He couldn't
like
do
most people are good dudes.
And Aaron was just like quit being a pussy.
Yeah, you fuck it. Yeah, the reverberation downwards throughout the eons is a pretty, which I'm not spoiling anything either. Like it's a skill of mine that I can deal with extrapolations like within the content of what it is.
Oh wow, this was.
Imagine not watching Attack on Titan. Can we end with berating people who don't watch it?
Yeah.
All right. I would love to end with a PSA for people who don't watch it and just accuse them of all sorts of things.
You know what's great is this episode made me I think this episode maybe made me understand this moment. When Grisha leaves on the day, I think it's the same day. I think he leaves on the same day that Shiganshina falls.
Yeah.
And like what, because up to this point we've learned that essentially Grisha found what he needed to find. He found the chapel and everything like very much earlier than they expected. Like even Zeke was shocked, remember? And he basically was just like, at least at this point, they more or less assumed that Grisha was waiting just because he wanted to be a father to Eren, right? And like make up for his past mistakes.
Yeah.
And essentially what I realized in this scene here is Eren goes on his little rant and tells him why he wants to go outside the walls. And he basically gives him like that. Yeah. He basically gives him like his young kid version of like his main motivation as a character that we see develop over the next couple seasons or so. You know what I mean? Where it's like he just wants to explore the world because he was born in it. And he doesn't want to be afraid. Right. And like that's what makes Grisha decide like, okay, now's the time. Because like,
and he's not even a fan of it either. He just respects Eren's will, just
exactly
like because his innate curiosity. And it's just like, even though I disagree with you, I am choosing this. And why am I choosing B when you choose A? Because I've been born into this world, and that's the same reason that you choose A instead of B.
Exactly.
So it's the same core justifying principle of I have free will, I want to do this, and I think he recognizes that.
Yeah, exactly. Like it's the same concept of like, remember how like when Grisha first kind of stumbles into the civilization of Paradise, when he like discovers like what the scouts are, remember he's like fascinated with them and he's just like, why would you go outside the walls? You know, and
Yeah.
basically the whole scout philosophy is they're just like to explore. Like just because it's dangerous out there doesn't mean that we could just cower behind these walls forever.
Which, how much of that goes into, because a lot more people could be watching this show than do.
Mm-hmm.
How much of that underlying sentiment is what unites the people who get behind this show?
Wow,
Like,
probably a lot.
I feel constricted in one way or another. I want to do more than I have been allotted. I would
Wow.
like to do more. Like, I think that's the trans cultural thing of people in Japan feel that way, people in America feel that way, people everywhere feel that way of like a lot. And I think that might be its appeal. Just I have been allotted a certain space on earth to do a certain thing, and it's not for me. I want more.
Right. Like the world is actively trying to essentially stop you from doing whatever it is you're trying to do.
It
You know
is
what I mean? Like if you didn't push
suffocating.
back at all, like throughout your career or anything, you'd end up at like essentially a fucking minimum wage pencil pushing type job, being a fucking cog in the machine. And like these companies don't fucking care about you. They'd let you fucking grow old and miserable and resentful and lonely, and they don't fucking give a shit. And then they're gonna try to steal your fucking pension when you go to retire. You know what I mean? Like that. I think that's essentially like that's I like the way you put it. Like it's like I was born in this world and I'm gonna at least try to make the best out of my life because what else are we gonna fucking do?
I have as much as a right to make the world the way that I want it to be as you do. And we don't need walls when we have money to keep people within the the paths
Mm.
that people want them to be, which I feel like that's almost getting like to just like, hey man, you ever thought about this? But I mean,
No, it's interesting though.
it is real. Like you don't need literal walls. I mean,
Yeah,
you have anybody listening to this knows the walls that you have.
right. Everyone's got their own mental barriers.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah, I mean that's wow. Yeah, you know you have a good show and a good story when like you could just basically kind of like shoot the shit and talk about it and you learn more about the story that you didn't know was already embedded in it. You know what I mean?
That's a great sentence. Yeah.
Oh, this is it. I love that shot. I love any shot. This is actually kind of like the famous Aaron's pissed shot.
He's just not having
Like
it.
they show that shot so many times throughout the series, even when he was a little kid. And I'm just realizing how I really like how they juxtaposed Grisha's reaction and face in this situation right next to Aaron.
Yeah. Which and it's not
Grisha's just
obvious
like, I
who's
can't
right.
kill children. Aaron's like, I'll do whatever the fuck I have to fucking free all of us.
And they both have points. It's not
Right.
obvious who's right.
Exactly. Yeah, I think
The show is
you know
so
one thing I will
fucking
say,
good.
Zeke is just constantly fucking mind blown this entire fucking episode. He
But
makes
what's
this
the
face 17 times throughout the show.
it's his only face throughout the whole episode, but like throughout his entire character, it's been him being the mastermind. Everybody else is retarded except for him. Like all of you, just I'm the only ape that can talk. Like none of you know anything. I know everything. And now he's just like, dude, what? What is going on?
Oh my god. You know one thing I thought about earlier actually? Oh my god, I just happened to scrub right to it. That's insane. This scene. How does Grisha see Zeke? I figured he could see Aaron in what am I at 514? I figured he could see Aaron here because they both had the attack titan, obviously, and we just learned that they can essentially speak to each other through their memories, etc. But how is Grisha able to see Zeke here?
Okay, the short answer is
Is it
I
because
don't
Aaron and Zeke?
know.
I think it's because Eren and Zeke touched, and Zeke has royal
I
blood.
think so. I mean, the fake physics that has to be made up for this. Like, yeah, I mean, they both touch, they both have the connection, and like, they both roughly can like appropriate each other's powers, like in the appropriate circumstance. So yeah, I mean, it doesn't strain my imagination like when he could recognize them. I wasn't just like, hey, that's breaking the fictional rules of the show. Like,
Oh no, that's
seems
not what I thought
appropriate.
either. That's definitely not.
Yeah, it seems appropriate.
I have way too much respect for the writers of this show to think that I'm gonna call them on a fucking plot hole.
Yeah. When I'm confused, I just assume that I'm at fault.
Yeah, right, exactly. Unless it's Star Wars or written.
I'm sorry. Yeah. I'm sorry for not being clever enough for your show. I'll try to do better next time.
I think it's because Zeke and Eren touch. So like Zeke is essentially using Eren's powers like vicariously, essentially.
Yeah, I think so. Like, I mean, Eren took powers from him, so why wouldn't it go the other way?
What did Eren take from him?
Like the ability, well, I mean, just like his entire, like the founder's power.
Like the fact that they're at the coordinate right now.
Like, I mean, even the fact that like they're at even ends, like power wise. Like if it was just Zeke, then it wouldn't even be a competition. But just the fact that it's even up for grabs means that there's been like transmission between the two.
True. There was something else here that I was gonna ask you about. There's that fucking face again.
It is. I mean, it's the same face that I made throughout the entire episode. Anybody watch it? Zeke is just. I mean, you're just identifying with the character because it's the viewer the entire time.
It's just like, what the fuck?
Exactly. Just what the fuck is going on?
I love how this is actually a good one too. I like how they go back to the time when Eren saves Mikasa, because that was fucking brutal what these two children did.
Yeah, dude, he's just like, I'm very glad that you brought this up. He's like, dude, I'll rescue you. Listen, I know that your dad brainwashed you and everything. Like, no, dude, I murdered people as a child. You don't even know. Like, did your dad tell you to do it? No, I did it because I wanted to. Like,
right, exactly.
That's really the whole thing.
You have to fight.
Like, yeah, exactly, dude. I fucking love that scene too. Like, you have to fight. If people who want to fight more than you are against you, you will lose. Therefore, you have to fight.
It's that simple.
It really is.
It's like
you can want it to not be, but
it's the well, I mean, that's just it. That's To Kill a Mockingbird, right? It's the loss of innocence. It's just like, listen, you want to get anything fucking done in the world, then it's like you might have to shed a little bit of fucking pride, right? A little, here and there, or a little bit of morality, or just be willing to do something that, you know what I mean? Like if the entire fate of humanity was in the palm of your hands.
Yeah, I was born into this world.
And to save them, you had to kill a few kids. Like Grisha.
Yeah. I mean,
and it's like, I think what's beautiful about all of this is the fact that it's just like, this is not making the argument that it's like, that's okay. It's not making the argument that like, that's something to be like, cool. It's like, no, this destroyed Grisha as a human being. Like, he did not want to fucking do this. Eren doesn't even want to fucking do this, but it's like, that's not the point. You know what I mean? It's it's your cross to bear. It's just like, you kind of have to like take one for humanity because no one else is going to fucking do it. Right. If you're put in this situation, right. And it's like, that's the question they're making you ask yourself as a viewer here. Is it's just like, wow, could I do this? And I'm very much on Eren's side. It's not like I'd be happy about it by any means, but it's just like,
yeah, I think it's it's basically trade-offs. Like nobody who ever gambles anything really has to confront a moral dilemma. And then Aaron, who gambles everything, has to confront the most moral dilemmas. And like a lot of people around him, like also have to like they gamble a bit, and so it's a trade off. Nobody gets to just pick good without bad in the other column rising, like in some other sense. Like nobody just you don't get to do anything without I don't know. Yeah, it's just complex morality. I'm being redundant, but yeah. I mean,
This is
especially his son telling his father that. Like that adds another layer of this is pretty fucked up.
Yeah, it's a little Jonah-ish, right? Saving his father from the belly of the beast type deal.
Yeah, you're corrupting your father. Like it's you're the worst, more malicious person in a sense. It's very and he's not he's not purely malevolent, but just like
Right.
everybody wants to improve on the generation before them, but Grisha is just like, hey, I can't do this. I'm a good guy. And he's just like, no, you're ruthless because I want you to be. It's this weird moral inversion that doesn't sit quite right with me.
Yeah. Yeah. It is sort of yeah. It's like absolutist. It's hard to fucking it's so much to
It's a show for
unpack.
grown-ups.
It's a show for grown-ups. That's a great way of putting it though. That's
Yeah,
a
if you're
really
an adult and you want to
well,
be entertained.
I just mean that like there's just like and you're not saying a show for grown-ups in the sense that there's like titties and blood. You're saying it's like these are some mature ass fucking themes, right? Like this is it really makes you question
Yeah.
a lot of things and put yourself in certain situations and ask yourself like Jesus Christ, could I do that? You know?
Yeah, this is a show for moral adults. Like you can be 37 years old and just be a moral child and just
Yeah,
and just
right,
have things
exactly.
handed to you and just be like, oh, this side is good and this side I'm just and just be a shitty stupid robot. It doesn't matter how old you are, 37, 56, whatever. If you want to actually be an adult and grapple with what human beings have to grapple with, then start by watching this fictional television.
Start by watching this cartoon.
then start by watching this cartoon.
No, but
People.
I'm
watch a cartoon and then advance to other things, but mostly watch the cartoon. Watch the cartoon.
I really couldn't agree with you more though, because like what you just described, that's essentially Aaron's story in this show. Is it's him being like the angry child to like the I don't even know what you would call him right now. Because he's like both a hero and a villain.
It's yet to be determined.
It's yeah, it is yet to be determined. But like just think about the growth that he's had from that moment when he was on the ship. You know what I mean? Like even when he attacked Marley. Oh, sorry. Even when he attacked Marley, he like Armin or Mikasa or someone is talking to him, and they're essentially just like, Aaron, you killed children here. Like you realize that like you're starting a war, like you're like not a good guy. And he basically is just like, yeah, I know, but like if we didn't do this, this was never gonna fucking end. And he's basically bearing the cross. That's like what he's doing, and he's taking the responsibility and essentially, and Zeke is essentially doing the exact same thing. He's just conceptualizing it a different way. He's on the other side of the coin. But like they're both trying to be like, we need to take it upon ourselves to end this. Because if this keeps going for generation and generation and generation, like they're thinking about the future, right? Like they're thinking about like this can't keep going on. Obviously, they have different ends to the means, but like, you know, anyway, like Aaron's story is like him going from a kid who's just filled with rage to like more of an adult who's dealing with the horrors of the world and facing them willingly and head on, despite how awful it is and despite what people may think and despite what he may have to grapple with himself. It's like, it's kind of not about you, right? It's like he's kind of been thrusted this horrible responsibility. And
Yeah,
you can either cower from it like a kid or man the fuck up and deal with it and face it.
yeah, it's about how, I mean, at least as far as Zeke and Aaron are concerned, like how people deal with the cycle. Like, first of all, are you going to recognize this cycle? Are you going to be aware of this cycle? Or are you just going to be stupid and only recognize the current phase of the cycle as if that's the only part that there's going to be? Are you going to be a child? Or are you going to be an adult?
Yeah.
Now, so there's a cycle. So of who's been victorious, who's lost, who's had bad shit done to them, and then who's had that situation reversed and then had bad shit done to them, and then inflicted what was inflicted upon them onto their. This is the cycle. This is how human beings are. This is how we've always been. Or are you going to be a child, or are you just going to be like, oh, my side is good and the other side is bad?
Exactly.
Grow up. You're not 6 years old. You're 30, fucking whatever. And there's really no clear answer, but the fact that it's really not over yet, the fact that it's exploring that in the terms, at the level of analysis that is at, is, I have all the fucking praise in the world for it, because otherwise we're just fed fucking fast food meals of just fucking French fries for morality for fucking preschoolers.
This is exactly like, you remember what Aaron says about people living inside the walls? And he's just like, we're not fucking ready. We can't fight the Titans. Like, look how they fucking just like, we're cowards. Isn't that what he says? He's like, we're fucking cowards behind these walls.
I think so. Something like that, definitely.
It kind of just like what you just said just kind of reminded me of, I forgot who he's talking to, but that's what it reminded me of. Yeah, man. I mean, just to wrap things up, like I'm so glad you got me into the show, and you're so right that it's like it's refreshing. It's nice to have a show like this because there's so much shit out there and like childish fucking themes and bullshit political agendas that's getting interjected into all of my fucking entertainment. You know what I mean? So it's nice to have a show that I can watch and like be treated like an adult while I'm watching it.
Yeah, dude. I'm glad that you got addicted to it like I knew that you would. And that's exactly why I, recommended it in the first place. Because the world is fucking complex, and having fucking simplistic shows is dumb, so you shouldn't do it. So I mean, this is, yeah, I'm very happy that you joined along as well, and I'm happy that you invited me on.
Yeah. I would love to have you on again, especially, with all the shit that's going on in Hollywood and whatnot. If you're more than welcome to join whenever you want, man, like for anything. It doesn't have to just be about Attack on Titan, but when it comes to Attack on Titan, you're my go-to fucking guy. I got a couple other friends who watch the show, but like they're not nearly into it as much as, as we just discussed. Like my buddy, I was actually going to have another friend of mine, the other guy who works with me on the channel, Josh. I was going to have him on, and maybe we'll do this eventually because he actually doesn't like season 4, all of it.
No, he's incorrect. He's incorrect. He's a mistaken gentleman. I'm not saying he's morally wrong, but he's a mistaken gentleman.
So he was basically like, do you really want me to have me on there? Because I'm kind of going to be a Debbie Downer. And I was like, well, I think it'd be interesting to hear your perspective. But ultimately we decided like, well, why don't we just, do our thing, and then maybe we'll figure something out. So if you want, like, that could be an interesting video to make at some point, having the three of us on there and just kind of shooting the shit about different perspectives.
It'd be my pleasure, man. I appreciate it.
All right, cool. All right, man. Well, I'll have you on soon. I can't wait for the next episode. We're going to have more content coming for you, so definitely stick around. If you like this and you want to see more, definitely like and subscribe. We're going to be making a bunch of videos as much as we can about all different kinds of stuff, not just Attack on Titan, but Our goal here is also to kind of look a little bit deeper and just talk about what's going on in pop culture and not be a pussy about it, because honestly, they're pushing out so much shit, and they don't treat us like adults, to kind of bring it back to what we were just saying. And this is a show that actually treats me like an adult, and it's refreshing. So like and subscribe, share the video with your friends, stick around. We'll see you soon. Thanks. Bam, sign off.